internet access at home. But the accessibility to devices for school homework using data from PISA 2019 is there is an extremely important gap in terms of socioeconomic status. So on average, students that come from vulnerable families, only one out of 3 children have access to a computer, whether from more favors of the top or the top part of the household income distribution, they 90% have access. And of course, with a lot of heterogeneity across countries as well. But basically what we see is a very important digital divide in Latin America that of course will have an impact on, inevitably, on learning, on the learning gaps after this crisis. And then on the right-hand side, you see that the schools are also still facing important connectivity issues. Again, using data from PISA in 2018, you see that on average in Latin America, 1 out of 3 schools have sufficient internet bandwidth. So this incorporates a dimension of quality of the connectivity. Whether in OECD, this percentage is more than double. And of course, with big gaps between schools that receive more vulnerable students versus those that receive more favored students, whether this gap is much smaller in OECD countries on average. Juanita, can you get to the next one? Now, something very important that we also monitored was not only the lack of connectivity, but the lack of readiness of the ministries of education themselves to provide quality online learning. And this is this graph that it uses. It's very simple to read. It uses a red light color scheme. So red means little, very not little development or low readiness, and then the green one is high readiness or established level of development. And we see that all the aspects in the rows are all the aspects that make education systems ready to provide quality online learning. School connectivity, the availability of digital platforms, and so on. You see a lot of red and orange squares across all the countries in the region. You have to go really through the end, go through to Uruguay, where you see Uruguay was in fact the only country that was ready by the time of the pandemic arrived to provide continuity of education services and online learning. So on this very brief diagnostic, we can move to the next one, Juanita, please. How are we helping countries overcome this? So basically, we build a framework from hybrid education that will guide the countries on the different pillars and components that they need to build on to provide a quality hybrid or distance learning experience. We build from our work that we have been investing in for some years now, that is the digital transformation of the entire education sector, both in terms of teaching and learning, but also in terms of management and decision making. And on this, we develop a framework that I'm going to briefly show you now. Juanita, can we go to the next one? So basically, we identify 4 elements for hybrid education that, and is summarized. You can find more information in a publication that we launched just last week, and that summarizes this. You see that we have four pillars. First is pedagogy, skills, and teaching profile, and this is important because it's not only find when in terms of pedagogy is not anymore. We are very far from the stage now of how to provide, how to train teachers on how to use the computer on very basic ICT skills. This is really about how to effectively teach using online education, using the platforms, what to really distribute between what you do in the classroom if you have the students in person and what you do online. So it's it's a training that is requiring new skills for the teachers to enter this new area of teaching and learning, and ensure a smooth transition. No. Second is content and platforms on the opposite side of the pie chart. And this is, of course, an area where we have been working with countries, and they have is to provide content that is aligned with the curriculum. Also prioritize the curriculum, because you cannot teach everything in a hybrid in a hybrid model or a distance education model. You have to really prioritize on the most essential contents. Also, we have equipment and connectivity. This is important on working with countries on how to effectively provide distributed equipment. Countries have been making important efforts in closing the digital gap that I showed you earlier, but also how to enhance connectivity and how to partner with the telecommunication firms and also local solutions to enhance connectivity. And finally, student monitoring and information that is related to the management system that I also mentioned earlier. It's very important on how to be able to monitor learning from the distance, how to ensure the students are engaged, they are attending, and not to see the dropout rates increase over the next years. Juanita, can we go to the next one, please? And so, based on this framework, what are type of solutions are we bringing to the countries? We can go to the next one right away, and this is just to conclude. First, we are developing practical and operational tools that help countries concretely to implement this hybrid education model. So we have a toolkit where we have terms of reference, we identify providers. With this, we have cost estimations on how they can implement all these different pillars for a quality hybrid education. Again, like I mentioned earlier, recommendations on how to expand internet access for vulnerable students. We are developing tools with the countries on how to do an assessment of teacher digital competencies and how to enhance them, and providing guidelines on data privacy as well in the education sector that has become more and more important. Juanita, can you go to the next one, please? And then a very important part is also, again, producing knowledge and identify best practices. In addition to the framework for hybrid learning and the publication that I mentioned, we are also identifying best practices in past programs in remote learning that we can get lessons from that. We are also working with the FAIRLAT initiative of the IDB group to analyze in detail how to use effectively artificial intelligence to prevent dropout, because this is going to become the center of the concerns of. I think I was muted. And then finally, the event for today contributes directly to this is, of course, mapping solution and fostering innovation. We're doing that, working closely with the public side, with the IDB lab, and also external partners such as Edlatam Alliance, Mindset, for example, from Israel, and building a strong partnerships to learn from that. So we're very excited that today we get to have this conversation with our colleagues in Africa and learn from them. So thank you, Juanita. Thank you again for the invitation, and looking forward to hear the conversation.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you so much for your introduction. Very, very insightful. Thank you so much. I'm gonna quickly move to Africa. We're gonna have kind of a view on the Africa education ecosystem by Enid Basamoa. Enid, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, everyone. It's thrilling to be a part of this conversation. I represent the Ghana Society for Education Technology. We are a professional membership-based organization.
Enid, you're muted. There is some noise in your line. You are muted.
There. Sorry about that. So I'll repeat myself. I represent the Ghana Society for Education Technology. We are a professional membership organization made up of educators, and our mission primarily is to integrate technology into education to improve learning outcomes. The African perspective as far as COVID and the integration of education into technology is not much different from what our contemporaries in Latin America have highlighted. There are quite a number of issues that run through. But currently in Ghana, from where we are, of course, during COVID, all the schools were shut for the safety of the children as well as the teachers. But up to now, there's been a gradual lifting of the, up to this point, there's been a gradual integration of the students back to school. So when schools were officially reopened, the final year students had to go in first and write their exams and complete the academic year. And then now currently what is happening is that the second year students are in school. In January, all schools will reopen and all the other students get to go back to school. And then that's when the new academic year will begin. And so pretty much that's the situation here as far as how we've coped with COVID has been. Also important to note is the fact that COVID hit all of us in the faces. We're all unprepared. We had all spoken about integrating technology into education, but there hadn't been so much of a concerted effort in that direction. But COVID made all of this so obvious, and now much effort is being pushed into online teaching, into virtual learning. And so currently in Ghana, because that's what I can really speak to, currently in Ghana, for example, in the private schools, so we have the private schools and we have the public schools. The public school scenario is what I narrated early on, but in the private schools, the top tier ones have resumed school, but they are all teaching and learning via virtual means. The lower tiered schools, most of them are still at home and are looking to go back to school when mainstream public sector schools go back to school. And so pretty much that's the situation now. And from GSED where we work, we help in upscaling the competencies of teachers to be able to embrace this new normal that has sort of come to stay with regards to teaching and learning. So we are doing a lot of, training workshops on digital teaching and learning, on emergency remote teaching. We recently trained over 80, circuit supervisors from GES on digital teaching and learning. We are looking to upscale that to even, integrate the leadership of GES into the digital teaching, and as in expose them into what digital teaching and learning is, so that we can cascade this down to all the regions. The idea really is that we want to be prepared. We don't want to be taken by surprise any longer. Next time, it may not be COVID, it may not be another pandemic, it could be anything else. The crux is that we should be prepared as educators, we should be prepared as a nation, we should be prepared. Education should not suffer. Our children's future should not suffer as a result of our unpreparedness, due to, any emergency that may surface sometime later. So pretty much that's the perspective from Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Enid. Thank you for this. We're going to begin our K-12 segment, and we're going to start, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have two perspectives from the K-12 scenario. One would be an EdTech from Latin America, then a school, then we have the same perspective from Africa. So we're going to start with one of the most successful K-12 solutions in EdTech Latin America, Cloud Labs, with Giovanni Orozco. Giovanni, welcome.
Welcome, Fernando. Thank you. Please, could you? Well, my name is Giovanni Orozco. I'm the founder of Cloud Labs. We created a wonderful platform for learning science and vocational subjects. using a STEM educational model, which integrates several disciplines promoting learning in context. Our innovation consists of doing this, but virtual. Next, please. As you know, schools are looking for a solution that engage students with science using technology. They want to reduce the risk of accidents, and they prefer to use environmentally friendly resources. More in this moment for the pandemic, they are looking for ways to do experimental, practices or experimental subjects, but virtual. That's one very important opportunity right now. COVID is giving us this opportunity. Also, teachers like to have all the data in the same place, and they want to grab their students' attention. As you know, students like to learn through games. Next, please. As I mentioned, for example, in data, last year in the same period, we had around 10,000 users by subscription. Right now, we have more than 300,000. That's wonderful in terms of how to help institutions, even in higher education. Next. As I mentioned, the idea here is if you want to learn mathematics, the best thing is how to apply those concepts in a real situation. That's why we believe we have a very good platform, because we can learn the concept, but the best thing is how to apply in a real or productive situation. You can see a lot of content or programs on the internet, but you cannot see simulation about mathematics. Next, please. We have right now already done more than 375 simulations, and we pretend to have in 2030 more than 1,500. We think we can grow year by year. Next. Our portfolio, we have simulations in physics, chemistry, mathematics, agriculture, mechatronics, robotics, all virtual and using learning by doing. Not only in middle and high schools, but also in higher education. Next, please. The thing we have, the clue, the flavor we have is the combination of a very nice pedagogy, very good content, the use of games and technology, the traceability, and the interoperability with other platforms. Next. We can even connect simulators, our simulators, with real equipment in the school labs. Next, please. Some of the unique feature we have in comparison with our competitors, we work through learning by doing and challenges in context. We have very nice laboratory reports. We can work, using native apps. Our product is very intuitive and friendly. We have a very good classroom manager for helping teachers in outcomes. All our product is curriculum aligned, and all of our content and simulators can be embedded in any platform could use LTI standards. Please. Next. We are right now in more than 30 countries, more than 4,000 schools, more than 8,000 teachers using our platform, most of the year due to the COVID. We work through partners in several parts around the world. Next. One good thing is we can diversify very easy. We can sell STEM, science, or math, or vocational. We can split our content. We don't need to sell all our entire platform. We can sell mathematics or vocational or engineering. We can sell also in several kinds of business model, like annual student subscription, annual device subscription, perpetual. Well, next, please. We have B2C and B2B model. Next, please, because of the time. We are growing very well. We are having a very good traction right now, and we think we are growing in other countries very quickly. Thanks. Well, we are looking for investment also. If you are interested, you can reach out. But the most important is we are looking, next please, we are looking for partnerships in Africa, and we can offer in Latam help in Colombia, for example, to share with our clients innovative projects. We have a very successful experience with some company in Singapore, and we can help in that way. And we are looking for a publisher or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giovanni. One of the leading edtechs in Latin America. I'm gonna now give the floor to Leonardo Rivera, who represents one of the top schools in Colombia, in Medellin, a leading institution that has a very unique perspective and approach to education. Welcome, Leonardo, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot for this space for our school. I'm glad to be here sharing with you about us. My name is Leonardo Rivera, and I am part of the academic staff at Colegio Canadiense, located in Envigado, Antioquia, in Colombia. Here in Montañares, we seek an emotional balance which allows us to act consciously. We generate new spaces and moments to practice mindfulness, which help us to get new strategies for enjoy a real life in happiness, and face life experience from resilience. Next one. Thank you so much. These activities are not just for students, even for families and for collaborators, for all of our workers at the school. Next one. We are a school based in a holistic philosophy will help us to get our higher proposed, which is just form happy people capable to adapting to the transform their world, create knowledge, build relationships, and contribute to the development of society. All of this is based on 4 fundamental pillars: being, society, happiness, and transformation. The first one is because we recognize the uniqueness of the human being to get the best version of themselves. Happiness, because we form beings capable to maintain their ability to get autonomousness, living here and now, maintain their ability to remain themselves and establish appropriate relationships with themselves, with others, and with society. The transformation is because we try to educate for change, hand by hand and hand in hand with the family. And finally, the society is because we try to integrate in an ethically way the natural, the cultural, digital, and the social ecosystems that our students have. Next one, please. Our singular curriculum has 3 lines. The first one is the wellness or socio-emotional development. The second one is the co-creation or transform, where mathematical, scientific thought and body development are very important. The third one, it's the ingenuity, because it's related with the technology, the digital and informational literacy, very useful in these moments with the pandemic and with everything related with the virtual teaching activities that we are doing. These lines are directly for awareness, which for us are the appropriation of those fundamental abilities or skills in the human being. The global, because it corresponds with everything related with the interculturality that we are doing, teaching in Spanish or in English. The second one is the data or the entrepreneurship related with the management of the information that it's currently provided by the global level. The environmental is because we are looking to create awareness and analysis about the human impact in our planet. And the civic is because we are looking for the best way to train individuals who actively lead the betterment of the society. Next one. Even now, we are starting a new alliance with a USA business school, American High School, And it's a virtual school. We hope to get this connection, not just for our students, even for the rest of the students in Colombia or even in Latin America, that then they are interested to get a dual diploma, not just the Colombian or the local diploma, even with the US that we can get. Next one. And finally, we want to share with you our social media. We can connect and we can create new audiences because that's our higher purpose. The next one, the final one, to Latin America, we can share new experience and find new alliances with similar process. We want to create new exchange possibilities for teachers and for students in order to share our proposal, our project. And even from Africa, we wish to get new advices based on applicable experience from our local environment. Even we want to align processes related with the training of citizens with a global awareness for the improvement of the quality of our life and in this planet that I guess is the most important for every one of us. Thanks a lot for the time, and that's all.
Thank you so much, Leonardo. We are going to now enter the African K-12 space. We have Harun Gurkan from the Galaxy International School in Accra. Welcome to this presentation. Harun, are you there?
Yes, please. Thank you for having me. My name is Harun, as you mentioned. I am Vice Principal of Galaxy International School, Accra, Ghana. So, do you have our slides? I think you have our slides. Let me start. Since the beginning of the pandemic, our school started to give online education. Previously, we were giving online education, but it was minimum. So, after pandemic started, we directed all our education to online. It was last year, and then after the our application of online education, we collected some parents' feedback. On the next slide, please. Next slide. So parents and students liked the experience a lot because so they gave us some reasons, and then it's basically the result of a survey. Because of some reasons, they liked online education. Of course, we see our let's say drawbacks, and then we try to improve in the beginning of the school year. My colleague talked about the situation in Ghana. The schools are generally online if they can give this service to their students. But most of the public schools are, right now, they are closed. Hopefully in the beginning of January next year, they are going to open the doors to their students. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our lesson structure right now. So basically, our teachers upload their videos before the lesson. Students watch their lessons online, not online, but before coming to school, like kind of asynchronous learning. After learning from the videos, they study by themselves. They solve some questions and everything. And then they come and then meet online with their teachers. Basically, they do problem solving, or they say they make their knowledge stronger and stronger. So this is our lesson structure for now. Please, next one. Okay, so next again. These are the platforms we are using right now. We have an online learning management system. Of course, there are a lot of options, but this is what we choose. In order to help with mathematics, our students are solving questions from this one, Art of Problem Solving Online. It's a very famous problem solving website, and then it's free. I suggest this website to our colleagues also. And then we also implement a reading program. We use Renaissance My Own, and then we follow our students' reading progress using this software. Please, next. Okay, so the last slide, actually, these are some, let's say, facts I want to share. Our school is a nominee for the Digital of the School of the Year in Educom Awards in Ghana 2020. In, let's say, 15 days, we are going to see the results. We are hopeful that we are going to get this award. We are praying for that one. Okay, so we are using social media a lot. We are using we have WhatsApp platforms for students. We have WhatsApp platforms for parents. We are updating them continuously, day by day, concerning the exams, concerning the events, and everything. And then also we update, let's say, others using the other social media platforms, Facebook, and so on. Counseling department is playing an active role here. They, rehabilitate, or they give a lot of suggestions to parents and students, because this is a different time, and then they are giving their suggestions, they are giving their advice to our parents and students so that they can get the most out of the learning process, online learning. Okay, and then the last thing, we updated our continuous development scheme so that to motivate our teachers to learn about online pedagogy and the other, let's say, online tools, so that we created an awarding system for the teachers so that they can be enthusiastic about the new learning opportunities, especially concerning online education. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Harun. Thank you for being here. And the whole idea is that we begin this exchange between Africa, Latin America, schools, technology companies, as the pandemic has brought a new reality and made us rethink about quality education and how it can be effectively delivered in a more inclusive and equitable manner. I think the role of technology and these leading education schools also can help us understand practices from Africa and Latin America that share these challenges about inequality, exclusion, connectivity, and so on. We're going to close now the segment for K-12, and we're going to move into stories about higher education. We're going to start with a U-Planner, an EdTech in higher ed from Chile, and I'll leave the floor to my friend Juan Pablo Mena. Welcome, Juan Pablo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Fer, for the invitation. It's a really honor for me to be here. And yes, why we are working in education? Because it's the most powerful weapon to change the world, that like Nelson Mandela said. And the next, please, Fer. U-Planner is an enabled, data-driven and evidence-based solutions to help the universities make just-in-time and informed decisions. And so this is our universe. And Fer, in the next, please. We are in 16 countries, 2.5 million students, mainly in Latin America. 90% of our project is in Latin America. And the next, please, Fer. We are the best EdTech company in Latin America, awarded by Microsoft, South Summit, and Corfo. And this is Anthony Salcito, the Vice President of Microsoft, in an award of Microsoft. And the next, please, Fer. We are working with the best universities in each country, number 1 and number 2 in QS ranking, and the biggest as well. And the next, please, Fer. And we are starting in US, in Spain, in Emirates. We are starting a project with more than 30 universities of the government. And in Australia, we are working with University of Sydney. And the next, please. How we do it, we absorb the data of the learning management system, the student information system, Our architecture is mainly Microsoft, and our algorithms and artificial intelligence is here in the down of the picture, and the exit is web application or mobile applications. The next, please. And that is an example. We have algorithms of artificial intelligence to optimize the scheduling of the institutions. And today, with coronavirus, all the institutions need to make new schedules and timetabling. For example, here we have some example here in Latin America. Aliad universities, for example, increase the group size in just 1 year in 47%. And in University of Washington postponed it in 3 years a new building in Seattle. For example, in ISIL, we decreased the operation cost in just 1 month in 10%. And highlight here our best customer in Mexico is Universidad Insurgentes, and Ricardo Phillips speak in a few minutes more. Please, Fer, in the next. That work. Here is a lot of simulations of different scenarios to modeling the different constraints of for example, right now, the coronavirus, the distance of a student is more, and they need to make classes with less number of students. And the next, Fer. And in assessment, we have a platform to align the learning outcomes of each course with the graduation profile. And we can measure the advance of each student in each competency of the curriculum. And the next, please, Fer. That is an example. For example, in one course, here you need to define the competency and the learning outcomes of each course. And in the next, Fer, and how to put each course to the graduation competencies. And for example, here is a competency of APEC to the it's an engineering accreditation worldwide. And the next, please, Fer. At the end of the process, we can measure the learning of each student and compare different years. For example, that is in the left is one cohort, and the left is other cohort, and you can compare the learning of the student. For example, when you change something in the curriculum. And the next, please. And in student success, we have machine learning to learn about the historical data of each student and predict a student with risk. And the next, please. The next, please. And the problem of the algorithm is not the problem. It's not the big problem. The big problem is the quality of data, and that is an application mobile to generate new data of the students in video conference or the data of the chatbot on the other platform of the university. And the next, please, Fer. And I want to make a highlight of our project in Peru, the Minister of Peru. We have here a strategic partners to make that achievement with LASPOS, an affiliate of Harvard University, and Tecnológico of Monterrey, the best university here in Latin America. And we are helping 20 top public universities in Peru and 350,000 students. And it's in a very, very good project to change and transform the education in Peru and with the collaboration of the Inter-American Bank as well. And the end, that is the reason we are working on education, the social impact. More than 80% of our students are vulnerable, and make, I think that is in a similar in Africa, and totally open to help the universities in Africa. Thank you very much, Fred.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. We are moving now to a university in Mexico, Universidad Insurgentes, who targets a very interesting segment and population. And my friend Ricardo Phillips, are you there?
Fernando, I'm here. Thank you very much, Juan Pablo. I'll just run quickly in my 3-4 minutes through some of our key findings in COVID, and specifically how we're dealing with data, which I believe is a key into changing into what we call this new normality. One of the first things we did is understand what we call the golden triangle, the relationship between student, teacher, and academics, as the need to maintain relationship and retention. COVID, as we all agree, the teachers become much more relevant in retention than before. He is the main contact with students wherever they are performing their learning and however they are performing it at a distance. Very similar to what Leonardo just said about the school in Colombia, we believe that positive psychology and well-being were part of our core. We were able to train all our teachers in that manner because we understood that most of our students, these are C-, D+ segments, well, they live in 60 square meters with 4 or 5 family members, limited access to technology. You need somebody who's a very good ambassador on a one-to-one basis, and that is your teacher. We did a lot of training in other areas, technology, and we partnered with other schools, including the Tec de Monterrey. Just as Juan Pablo does, I believe that sharing right now is core to overcoming the pandemic. Some of our results, and it was, I would say, quite easy because we offered the training. We didn't have to push it. 2 years ago, we were only able to execute 1,800 hours of training to our teachers in hybrid mode, which means presential and online. Scheduling was very difficult for them because most of our teachers running around providing classes in different schools. This year, because of COVID and because we were able to offer this up through technology and third-party solutions, we were able to grow to 80,000 hours of training. Today, we have very good teachers. Performance statistics with students are improving, and their teacher evaluations are coming out very positive. The second thing we went into was design and figure out how we can report and monitor what is happening. Yes, everybody had Zoom academies. Yes, everybody was up there in the network, but what was happening? We were able, and this was part of our past, because we have OpenLMS and we have Google Enterprise, we were able to set joint databases and find out what was really happening behind the scene. So we are able to integrate these platforms, and I'm talking about platforms that run about $2 to $7 per student year. So they are easy to get to for student bases that are small, they're large and of small income like ours. We were able to integrate the data into one pool, and we're still finishing, but we try to connect 3 different levels of data. What we call the day-to-day, which everybody does, payments, attendance, pass rates, is the student there? Then we were able to link these educational platforms, both OpenLMS and Google Enterprise. We use the Enterprise version because of this. And finally, we're trying to integrate social media through HubSpot to understand complaints and interest. Put all of that into a big pool. The core here is you need to find out what your students are doing and how they're behaving. Results, 6 to 10% of our enrolled students over the last 8 months, every day, this is on a daily basis, it's not every time the single person, have ongoing issues to access platforms. And we'll tell you later why. And 1% of our teachers are not really accessing the platforms. And again, this is daily. So we can track this every day by campus, by program, running more than 40 programs in 25 campuses. And it allows us to understand what is happening behind the scenes and also talk to the teacher and close the bind between teachers who are trained and students who need company. The next one. So this is the big one, which is scheduling adapting has changed. As I was in a meeting this morning, sponsored by the IFC with Africa. And the theme is, how do you deal with students who work in our both continents? And how do we deal with COVID in our both continents with scheduling? And it's changed dramatically. You know, April, we saw a whole bunch of working students starting to drop off. And it was why? Not because they weren't finding work, because they were. I mean, these are informal underground workers who one day are selling something, the next day they're cutting grass, but they work. And our morning students, which are more traditional, mom and pop supported, we're not going to classes. We finally got our databases together, and these are the things we found out. 23%, which is very similar across, didn't have internet. So connectivity, as you know, our first speaker told us, is still a very big issue, and we have to find out how to help them. Funny, 7% of them just fell asleep. These were the young students who did not want to take a 7 or 8 o'clock classroom, who spent looking at Netflix all night long. And the only way to change that was, okay, let's reschedule to 9 a.m. 29%, and most of them have very difficult family schedules as of COVID. They need to work, and the work schedules change significantly. We have to start rescheduling them. Some of them, for example, traditional students, 6 people in a home with limited internet and bandwidth. Well, you know, let's make sure the K-12 kids get their schooling in the morning, and we'll just push our classes and reschedule into the afternoon so that everybody can have a better environment. Working students, same thing. And even teachers. Teachers now, under this scenario and going hybrid, well, many of them will not be what happened in many of our developing countries, spend 2, 3, 4 hours in traffic every day moving along. So again, there's a whole arena of rescheduling that has to happen. And how do we do it? So we've worked with UPlanner. We worked with them over the last year on a traditional model. And as after COVID, we've been literally refixing our algorithms to try to improve scheduling on how you can plan teaching, student, traditional or working solutions much better. Scheduling technology has become essential to us, not only to service the student, which needs a lot more flexibility, but also how to manage our margins. As you're aware, you know, we focus in our countries on low-income students. We're talking about $100 to $80 a month tuition and rates to provide quality education that can reach standards on international levels. So managing gross margins becomes very relevant to making that happen and allocating resources to the student. I wasn't able to fit in what we're trying to provide and what we're trying to get. What we have done and how we're helping other universities is providing them with the behavior data that we see in our students so they can adapt and move forward. Our relationship with UPlanner has been working now for 6 months on new scheduling and planning, and we're moving forward. And finally, what we're looking for again, and I think this is a great environment, Fernando, is sharing best practices. I mean, we've done it with American universities, we've done it with some Brazilian universities, but when you look at it from Latin America and Africa, we have the same issues around connectivity, about flexibility, about income levels, best practices, and how to put technology in that will allow our universities and our students strive much better and go up the ladder, that, you know, income pyramid, which is so essential for us to get out of the developing world and get into the developing world. So what can I offer is obviously for those who want, we have a lot of data we can share. And what we're looking for is, again, similar, same best practices, mostly around retention and employability. I haven't been able to crack the employability. And the reason is most of our students work in small companies, and most large employable platforms work on larger companies. How do we build that gap is where I think the next big hurdle for our kids is. Here's my data and links. Anybody feel free to contact me, and I'm very happy to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricardo. We're gonna speed it up. We're gonna move to Africa again, to the Valley View University that is located in Oyibi, very close to Accra. And we have Israel Abjad Jaboa and Emmanuel Duncan that will share their story from a university in Ghana. Thank you so much.
Hi, I Winfred Lakote, will be sharing for Valley View University as to how we've been able to manage our technology and learning for now. What you must know is that in Africa, most of our universities are face-to-face learning. So we've done more of what we call the face-to-face learning, and there's less of online learning. And so before COVID, we had more of physical interactions where students sit in front of faculty and then there's that discussion. But with time, what happened was that there was an abrupt halt for learning and teaching, and because the government closed, locked down all universities because of the COVID. So what we had to do was to find a way of moving our students online. And so for 3 weeks, the university went on a halt, and then we provided some preparation stages. For instance, we got our learning management system. We needed to expand it, the Moodle platform. And then we had to train our faculty, provide short videos for our students on certain things as to how they could use technology, and also talk to our telecommunication companies as to how they can help us in terms of providing some kind of data for our students. Because, you know, one of the biggest things, like our previous speaker spoke of, is data connectivity issues. And so we have to resolve that. And most often the income levels of our students are a bit low. So what we had to do was to provide some form of agreement with the telecommunication companies to be able to make sure that we can provide our students with data or internet wherever they found themselves. Of course, that didn't take away the connectivity issues, because generally there are connectivity issues everywhere. So our e-learning platform was 0 rated, meaning that our students can visit these e-learning platforms without being charged. And we were also giving some data. And then there was also a strong team, what we call the Educational and Instructional Technology Support Unit. This team provided technical support, communication support, instructional support to both faculty and students. And this team has come to stay because we realized that there's a need to move in terms of hybrid learning. Therefore, what we are doing basically is to make sure that we don't stick to only face-to-face, but intentionally incorporate, because COVID has taught us that there's the need to find a way of doing that hybrid learning. So what are the lessons we have learned? Well, students are able to write exams. We're able to conduct online exams for both synchronous and asynchronous exams. And we even had a national exam, that is the Nurses and Midwifery Council for their licensure exam. For the first time, was held online on our campus, which was a very good one. What are our success factors? There was strong leadership, management leadership. You know, technology would not survive without management support. There was also a strong support unit. And then during that period of COVID lockdown, we had what we call we worked on the policies, online policies. Because, as you know, our learning was largely face-to-face. Therefore, there was a need to bring up some policies that would guide students and faculty in their day-to-day activities, and that has stayed. Now, in terms of connectivity issues, what we tried to do was to have pre-recorded videos. So faculty members would record themselves way before the class time, and then upload it using our audiovisual tool, the big blue button. And then this audiovisual tool allows the students to be able to have access, or at least those who have connectivity issues during a live lecture, to be able to have access to the videos. In other instances, whenever there was a live lecture, there was faculty members had to record it so that students can visit the platforms later and be able to have access to that. Now, one of our success factors when it comes to technology also was a familiar learning tool, learning management system. So what we have done as a university is to have a learning management system which is familiar and which has been tried and tested, so that we can all be able to appreciate it and make migration easier. We also realized that in a part of the world, there are a lot of power issues. And so there's a power fluctuation. So aside having the plant or a generator that comes on when lights go off, we also decided to have our cloud service. So all our infrastructure was built on the cloud, so that whether there's light out or not, we can still have our learning activities ongoing. And that was a huge success to us. And I can tell you, after the survey, which we have conducted, but even outside the classroom, we also put together our WhatsApp and Telegram pages for our students, where we could share information outside school, meaning that students were not left out. We tried to bring everybody on board during this period. And this has become permanent in our deliberations. The university has now decided to fully have that support unit working tirelessly 24/7 to make sure that we provide constant online learning and hybrid learning. I must tell you that even those who were a bit skeptical now are able to appreciate the hybrid form of learning and are rooting for more of hybrid learning going forward. And so we didn't miss training. Most of our faculty and students needed to be trained. And we continuously do training. Currently, almost every now and then, we are training our students and faculty since COVID is still on and our universities are still under lockdown. So what we are trying to do is to take the opportunity to continuously train our students and our faculty, so that together we know we have come to stay. We don't want to be taken by surprise anymore. So we are fully prepared for the future. And I believe these are very big lessons we as a university have learned from this COVID experience. And thank you.
Thank you, Winfred. Apologies for the confusion on the agenda. Then we're gonna move on to an EdTech in Africa. So Slich is the EdTech from Israel, Ajay Jeboa. Welcome, Israel.
Hello, welcome. I don't know, because of the time difference, I would say hi to you all and avoid time greetings. So my name is Israel, and I would speaking on behalf of my company. And for the past 2 years, since we've been working with the Ministry of Education, I would also touch a little bit on that. Can we please move to the next slide? I would have to have my slideshow. So basically, we are a tech company, and what we do is we build applications for the ministries, especially we normally work with the government. And in the education sector, we have an application we call the Unilink, and we've been giving to the government for the past 3 years, I should say. So at the end of the day, the government has what we call the, please let's move on to the next slide, what we call the computerized placement program. When they are done, ours is supposed to make sure that the schools have a normal management system that they are running in all the government schools that we have. So we will really have a wide coverage. Over the years, our goal has actually been very basic, and I would want to start by saying that in our area, it's quite different from all the other presentations that we've had, but there are some similarities. We do provide the softwares for both public and also for the government institutions, but majority of our clients are coming from the government. But when you are servicing a large number of students and a large number of groups, which are not necessarily even based, let's say, within the urban centers alone, but then are also very, very remote from accessing internet and stuff, COVID issues, discussing also digital issues are really different. And that is the perspective I would want to touch on. When you have, can we please move on to the next slide? When you have the whole agenda for education on a social level like we have in Ghana, the education must be sustainable and it must ensure quality for all. So when you take a look at this, everyone is supposed to be able to access the quality or the education, the content you are providing for them and stuff like that. So at Zillich, what we were doing for the government was consulting for them at a national scale. And in Ghana, I must say that education, primarily most of the students, education in the public sector is free. So it's a social program that is being run by the government, and from the K-12 education is free. So it actually faces a lot of criticism. Please, let's move on to the next slide. And to ensure that, please the next slide, to ensure that the education is sustainable, we must make sure that information is collected across board. The problem we came to face just before COVID kicked in is that across board, there are entry exams or final exams that the students would have to take at the end of every, say, junior high school or at the end of every high school. And government only gets this data at the end of the 2 or 3 years and uses this data to make decisions. So for example, the student would be in school for say 3 years or 4 years of high school. And then after the end of the final exam, that is when the government will be able to make decisions based on the results that they got. And there weren't any management systems as of, introduced, which was centralized for the government because, as I said, education in the government is really a social program, so it's not like privatized. Can we move on to the next stage, please? So the problem was that government needed a centralized system, but there weren't anything like that, and they couldn't monitor the students and see how they were performing at the various locations that we find ourselves. At the end of the day, the next thing you are looking at is low accessibility. When I say low accessibility, I'm not just referring to internet. I'm also talking about devices. In this case, you could have, let's say, an international school with about 1,000 students, and then you could make an investment of getting everyone devices to be able to access the tools that the content you provide for them online, especially when COVID kicked in. But then in the government sense, we can't actually provide digital devices, or let me say computing devices for every kid. That would be a huge cost, unless probably maybe the World Bank decides to loan everyone with some money they will not probably need back again. But at the end of the day, low accessibility was also a very big question, and it kind of was more or less left on parents who would have devices to be able to access, and it created a huge divide. At the same time, let's move on to the next slide. Ghana was also facing what we call a policy change with regard to a huge number of students that wanted to be in school. So we adopted a new program called the multi-tracking systems, where at some point in time, students will be in school, and at other points in time, students will not be in school. So with all these combined, what was happening was that we needed to actually invent a way to be able to allow students to study. Let's move on to the next slide. So for us as a company, it was not just providing a technology or platform for to collect data for the government, but it was also informing them on what was on ground, what we needed to do, and what was the most important things we needed to tackle. Yes, we did a lot best to help our technology get into all schools, but the government also realized that there were a lot of complaints coming from the families because most people don't even have televisions, most people don't have radio, so it was hard to actually talk about equity and quality and equal access to everyone when it comes to delivering education at large. But then it did it best using the curriculum that we had developed already that is existing to be able to service the some of the community or those who could access through television programs, through radio programs, and then also through our platform where we're able to also engage people using teachers using the platform. And please, let's move on to the next slide. Part of the things that we have done from the time we connected with the government is that we've been able to give them a functional SMS system and LMS system that is being run in the schools. This is also being tested over the period of years as we've been developing, and then also it's currently deployed to all the public schools within the country. That is about 721. And then we also are in about 13 private schools. We've also trained, please let's slide. We've also trained over 5,000 teachers during this period on how to access the tool and be able to use the tool effectively in their various schools. Please let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, and so over the years, what we've done is that we've been able to enroll about 1.2 million users on our platform, with recording about 250,000 weekly active users. Again, we're experiencing this because not everyone has the device to be able to access the platform. Others are visiting the television and the radio programs. Please, next slide. And our user levels are categorized from a national level. So at the national level, we have people from the Ministry of Education, Free SHS Secretariat, GES who are accessing the platform. We also have users at the regional district levels who are also accessing the platform. We also have school staff, the heads, the financial staff, and other people also, non-teaching staff members accessing the application, teachers, students, and parents as well. And the numbers, as you could see, are below. And the total number is averaging about 1.2 million users. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, next slide. So over the years, we've actually recorded a very large user satisfaction when it comes to using our platform because of its easy navigation. And a lot of people have shared their experiences with us as to how to use or using our platform, especially within this period. Please, next slide. And when it comes to reporting, the regular thing I would want to say is that our goal has to be make sure we present the government on a larger scale what is actually happening to students in the various schools in the various regions, coming from 721 schools with a population of about 1.2 million. So we are not just looking at a particular class or a particular sector of students, but we are advising the government as to, at the end of this particular semester, before the student finishes their final exams, we are able to advise whether this student will be able to go and pass the final exams or not. So we are giving detailed report, not just for the single student. Please, can we move on to the next slide? But then on a larger scale, as to how teachers are performing actually, using statistical models that actually encompasses around about 20 or so decision-making parameters. And we are providing performance monitoring, not just for students, but we're also providing performance monitoring for teachers as well. Can we move on to the next slide? And these are some of the decision parameters we are actually looking on. Like I said, we are covering the whole country, and the school is a social program. So we are looking at the region the school is in, the district the school is coming from, what kind of gender does it accept, what residential status is it running, are the students allowed to stay on campus or not, what kind of track type, what kind of programs are run in the schools, what is the student, let me say, gender when it comes to sitting at a particular exam, what kind of category of school are we looking at? Say, is it a class A school, is it a first class school, second class school, what is the attendance rate? And this is one of the things that we do particularly for the government. We report particularly on how students are performing as against how they attend each particular class and stuff like that. And a whole lot that we are trying to do when it comes to this, and this is at the national scale. Can we move on to the next slide? So over the years, moving on, since COVID kicked in, like I said, we are doing a lot with regard to things, but on the national scale, since we cannot provide devices for everyone, that is the biggest limitation when it comes to our technology access. And we're trying to use other conventional means like TV, like radio and other stuff. But then over the years, in new things, what we want to introduce now with our technology is the cashless payment that is moving on as school resumes, because the infrastructure for schools have been set up and they would not be done away with. Government is still investing in infrastructure. Private schools are also still investing in infrastructure when it comes to, so when school resumes, students are going to go back on campus. And what are we going to do when it comes to them making payments and stuff like that? And then also, so we have a technology, as you can see, where students are provided with biometric ID cards that they use to take attendance and then also use to make cashless payment. And we would be introducing this hopefully when school resumes on January. Next slide, please. So
we need to close, so I'll ask you
Yeah.
to 1 minute, please. Sorry for that.
Sure, that's fine. So as I wrap up, like I said, we're providing information for the government at a national stage, and we're trying to provide performance and monitoring for both teachers and students to be able to advise the government on how to make policies to affect students. Please, next slide. Like I said, majority of our work has been, next slide, has been done with the public schools, and we are moving into the private sector. Please, next slide. Yeah. And in the private sector, we count about over 12,000 private schools. And next year, that is where the target market would be in trying to provide them, because most of the private schools, as Haron was saying, it is the schools that can afford providing digital information or digital learning that are doing it. Others are still shut down, and this is the market we want to look up to. So we're actually inviting anyone who would want to concentrate on Africa, given the experience we've had with the government, and would want to help us reach out to these private schools. Our doors are open for discussions and business. And thank you very much for listening to me and my presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Israel. Very compelling. We're gonna accelerate and move on. Holon IQ, as you all know, has become the leading intelligence information assessment for the EdTech space, and they have worked with Latin America and Africa. Patrick, welcome to this stage, and share your reflections about how these two regions could begin to build synergies as per this conversation and your perspective. Thank you so much for your support over the years.
Thank you, Fernando. It's wonderful to be here with everybody, and this is such a fantastic initiative connecting two of my personal favorite regions of the world that I think don't get enough attention from the rest of the world, but are very, very exciting for all the reasons that we've heard today. I'm just going to spend 5 minutes making you aware of some work that you can review in your own time. As Fernando mentioned, throughout this year, we worked with the Edlatam Alliance, and we worked across Africa to identify the top 100 in LATAM EdTech startups and the top 50 in Africa. And look, perhaps the most difficult part about that is actually the teams that don't appear in this list of 100 or 50. There are so many incredible teams across both regions, that examples that we've heard of today. And look, our mission really here is to shine a light on some of the leaders across those regions. So let me really quickly make you aware of this work and let you check it out in your own time. We jump onto the next slide. What we did is we took applications from across LATAM and Africa combined. It would have been over 2,000 organizations, principally education technology teams. But as a couple of people have mentioned here, it's not all about software. Sometimes innovation comes in other forms, especially in markets where there is a low access to connectivity or low access to hardware. And sometimes the most impactful innovations don't come from technology. And so we're quite broad and flexible in how we think about that. We looked at each team on 5 dimensions: the size and the attractiveness of the market that they were focused on, the product, the quality, the uniqueness, evidence of impact, the team itself behind that innovation or that product or that company, also evidence of diversity in that team. And then finally, capital, which isn't always about raising money from investors. Sometimes it's just about demonstrating that they had the financial health and access to the resources required to achieve their mission. If we jump onto the next slide, I think we will see the LATAM EdTech 100. I just love looking at this map. As you can see, we've segmented those 100 teams that were selected into different segments that represent some of the thematics we're seeing across LATAM. I think one of the most notable thematics here was we saw a really strong focus on workforce, a very large number of organizations that are focused on the pathway from post-secondary and secondary education through to getting a job as well. Of course, really great representation across all segments. If we jump onto the next slide, you'll see a little bit of the profile there of that representation. Still a lot of K-12, you can see on that sector chart there. From a cluster perspective, you start to see that focus on upskilling, a lot of focus on content and systems as well, all the way through to tutoring and test prep, financing and language learning. From a country perspective, no surprise, Brazil very heavily represented, but also all across the region. And that was one of the most inspiring parts. Is some of the most impactful innovation happening in LATAM is coming from across the market in some of the smaller countries, no less important than their larger peers. If we go on to the next slide, I think we'll get a sneak preview of the Africa EdTech 50. We only launched this, I think, probably 2 months ago now. As you can see here, there was still that jobs and upskilling focus, but a much heavier representation for Africa in K-12, those earlier learning years, a bigger focus on language and literacy, still areas like education financing as well, and lots of crossover with LATAM. And that's why it's just so exciting to see this initiative here. And this will be the first of many like it, I'm sure. There are some very, very big learnings that can be shared across Africa and across LATAM. It's really obvious from the work that we've done in the studies that we've been leading. Jump onto the next slide. You'll see a bit of the same kind of representation here. Very large focus on K-12. We didn't find any, well, we found a lot, but not in the 50 of early childhood in Africa. There was more early childhood represented in the 100 in LATAM, but the focus in Africa seemed to be much more on K-12. But as you can see, still a large representation in higher education and workforce as well. And from a country perspective, again, some of the bigger markets, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, but then all the way through to Ethiopia, Rwanda, you know, some magnificent innovation coming from all across the continent. We jump onto the next slide. Okay, we're finished there. So look, to get all of the detail here, go to holoniq.com and go to research. You won't have to scroll very far down. You'll find not just the LATAM and the Africa EdTech 100, but the Nordic Baltic, the Southeast Asia, Russia and CIS. We're doing the Middle East and North Africa at the moment, Australia and New Zealand, Europe and North America. We've essentially done a bit of a lap of the world to find some of the most impactful innovation. If you just want a really quick 1 minute taste of what we do, there's a great YouTube video. I'll throw a link into the channel. We love tracking all the innovation. I think I just want to do a quick shout out to the Edlatam Alliance and to IDB. Nobody here has to do this. They're doing this out of passion. They're doing this out of curiosity. They're doing this to support the work that you are doing and your peers around the world. So big congrats and kudos to those team. And Fernando, thank you for the opportunity to share a couple of snippets with everybody today.
Thank you so much, Patrick. You would be happy to know that our next EdTech Series Alliance is going to be with Australia. So we're working with the ecosystem and we're going to get Latin America and Australia in a few weeks. So you're going to be happy to hear that. We are getting to the end. I would love to have the IDB, Elena, and the team. Caro, if you're there, you want to do a 1 minute closure of this event. And this is the beginning of collaboration and exchange between Latin America and Africa. Elena, you want to do a closing statement? Is Elena still there? Caro?
Yes, Fernando, I'm here. I don't know if I just wanted to ask Carolina and Barry whether they wanted to provide the closure as the direct partners.
Yeah, Caro.
Sure. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Fernando. It's been really a real pleasure for us. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you all for being present today. For me, it was really insightful to hear each and every one of you. As many of you have mentioned, the work you have been doing is really inspiring for us. So I really hope that this conversation does not end right here today. So I do hope the conversation among you will continue. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. We are closing. Thank you to the IDB, HolonIQ, Ghana Society for Education. It's really been a pleasure. So we'll see you on the next series, and it's going to be Australia, Latin America next. So thank you so much, and hope this was useful for all of you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.